AM 590 KXSP Omaha's ESPN Radio. Pull them belts tight, because it's time for the front stretch. Presented by Kosiski Auto Parts at 50th and I Street.
Welcome to another edition of the Front Stretch on AM 590 Omaha's ESPN Radio. Presented by Kosiski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street. On the phone, Sam Lincoln of US 30. Sam, thank you so much for sitting down with us. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, we're doing just fine. Chilly, but not racing weather right now.
That's right. Are you enjoying your off season at all?
Yes and no. Have a lot of things to do. Had a lot of family Christmas stuff, and now we're getting into tax season, and then we go to racing.
Talk about your off season. How are you guys? How's everything been going? Anything new you got on the plate?
There's a swap meet here Saturday the 19th in Columbus. I have a booth there. The winter is, we haven't really done a whole lot this winter. The weather hasn't been good, and Kenny's not been in the best of health right now. He's just kind of bouncing back from surgery. So by spring, we'll have the track ready to go. Our opening night, we're scheduled for April 25th, and we race on Thursday night. We are IMCA sanctioned with modified Northern Sport Mods, Hobby Stock, Sport Compact. We also run street stock class that's quite similar to an IMCA stock car, but we're not sanctioned. We don't run those every week, and on the weeks we don't run those, we have the Good Old Time Racing Association out of Fremont that races the coupe, or there's another group starting out, Midwest Classics, which run the 60s and 70s era cars, 50s, 60s, 70s era cars, and then July 4th we'll have our SMLR will return to our racetrack on Thursday, July 4th.
For the listeners out there, how big of a track is US 30 Speedway?
We're a third-mile, semi-banked, kind of pretty close to the same size as Eagle.
And what?
Not quite as banked.
What did you say that your SLMR series was that July 3rd or July 4th?
July 4th, Thursday.
Okay, so that's Thursday, July 4th. Are you guys going to do anything special since it's the Independence Day?
We haven't in the past because of the, you have to have so much extra insurance and people that light your fireworks and stuff, and so we kind of just don't charge as much, and we watch the fireworks from the city. Sitting in our grandstand, you can watch the city fireworks display.
And did you mention that maybe a little bit of a ticket price discount that night?
Well, it's just I just basically mean that we don't charge an arm and a leg. It'll probably be grandstand will probably be $15 that night for adults. We don't charge for kids under 12, and we have a high school rate of $10. Well, on a normal night, on a regular night of racing, we have our admission is $10 for adults, $5 for students with ID, and kids under 12 are free.
All right, and again, we're on the phone with Sam Lincoln of US 30 Speedway in Columbus, Nebraska, talking about your guys' off-season. Anything else you've added in the off-season to kind of bolster up your schedule a little bit, or are you guys just going to go ahead and continue on with the way you did it in 2012?
We're kind of going to continue with what we did in 2012. It's kind of one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I was just thinking the exact same thing.
We're finally got ourselves established as being this Thursday night track. It took us a few years to convince people that we really meant it, that we're really racing on Thursday nights. And Columbus is a manufacturing city, and we have a lot of factories that work 4 10-hour days. And so, therefore, in Columbus, Thursday is Friday, because you don't have to go to work Friday because you work 4 10-hour days. And also, most places you work now do direct deposit, and so even if you get paid on Friday, your paycheck is actually deposited at midnight on Thursday, so Thursday night. So I don't go to the bank at that hour, so you write me a check, it's not going to bounce because you got paid before your check is deposited, your paycheck is deposited before I get to the bank.
Right.
The money flow that was the problem that we had, that we switched from Sunday, was because by Sunday everybody was broke.
Gone ahead and spent their money for the weekend, huh?
Yeah, so we got there first, so they have money to spend on Thursday nights because we're the first ones spending it.
Sam, I've always wondered why you guys were so successful on Thursday nights, and with Columbus being a manufacturing center here in eastern Nebraska, that would make sense if they're working 4 10-hour days. The one thing I've noticed is you've had a lot of racers that will come around the Plattsmouth, River Valley area. I mean, these guys are driving 90 to 100 miles week in and week out. What do you lend your success to with being able to retain drivers like that week in and week out?
Actually, the IMCA sanctioning, most of these drivers are chasing what they call national points, and so we gave them an extra night to race on because nobody else was racing on Thursday nights. And so we get a lot of the best racing here because, if you need a win, if you're chasing for the championship and you need a win, you got to beat the guy. You need the win, but you also need to beat the guy that you're fighting against. And so you both race here on Thursday. And so technically your win here is 2 wins because you beat him and you won.
Who are some of the hot shoes that you have out there, some of the best drivers?
A year ago, we had the national champion, Jordan Grabowski, and he was our top point man for the season. This last year, we have our top point modified was Dylan Smith, and we have our sign out along the highway has a car on it. On the sign, we have a race car. And for 25 years, there was a race car up there, number 25. Number 30, because it was US 30 Speedway. And the years that last year, when Grabowski won our championship, our sign fell down. 25 years later, the sign can fall down in a windstorm.
Right.
Anyway, when we went to replace the car, I asked Grabowski if he wanted to wrap it to look like his car. So we had, for last season, we had Grabowski's car up on the sign, and now Dylan Smith has the option to put his car up there for next year.
So is that going to be a tradition you guys are going to get started
yes,
at
it's a tradition. We're going to give the modified, our track champion, the option to wrap the car that's on the sign.
For the modified series, right?
Right.
Joining studio as always.
And in our other classes, we have Kyle Freiner was our top point in Northern Sport Mods, and he was champion several, and I think he finished second or third to Sobbing nationally, and our hobby stock was Wilkerson, Jason Wilkerson, who last year was national. So we have the best of the best races at Columbus.
Hey, I joined in studio Joe Kosiski and Andrew Kosiski. Guys, have either one of you raced at Columbus, and if so, tell me what it's like.
I've raced at Columbus. Andrew raced there last year. He
I've
can
raced there.
tell you more recent, but I have raced there before.
I've never been there.
It's a real neat facility there. It doesn't really sit like you think in a hole, but the grandstands kind of has that Eagle look to it the exact same way.
Yeah. I
mean, they really take good care of the track. It was really filled up. Is it like that for our weekly shows? Just always that packed? Was just because the SLMR came into town, Sam?
No. Ironically, last year our worst night was our best night in the previous year. No, last year we just had terrific crowds the entire season.
That's good to hear. Now, was last year the first year you switched to Thursdays, or have you been there for a while?
No, we've been at Thursdays for like about 7-8 years now.
Okay. Joined on the phone with Sam Lincoln, director for US 30 in Columbus, Nebraska. Sam, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
I got one more quick thing here.
Throw her in there.
When we had SMLR here during the race, in the middle of the race, instead of somebody leading the race and somebody running second, they were running 2 and 3 wide.
It was
the whole race. It was 2 and 3 wide.
Oh yes,
it was a phenomenal race, and I even the drivers couldn't believe that they could race side by side like that.
It was fantastic for being on a shorter track. The way the racers ran that track, They'd done a perfect job for preparation. Done a great job, and we was all done. Me and Sam both had a pretty good smile after we was all done, didn't we, Sam?
Yes, we did.
and we said, Sam, how about next year? And she says,
as nervous as we were before it started, we had big smiles on our faces.
That's right. It was absolutely an excellent show, and Sam said right after the show, we'll probably do this again next year. What do you think? It was that quick.
Good to hear. And again, you can see that show again this year back at Columbus, Nebraska at US 30 Speedway on July 4th. Do you guys have a website people can go and check out and get more information?
I have absolutely no idea if the website that we had was taken care of by somebody that said that they weren't going to do it this year. So I don't know. We haven't. I'm not the computer whiz, and so somebody else has to do it for me. So we hopefully we'll have something. Otherwise, we're real good on dirt drivers.
Okay, so head over to Dirt Drivers to get updates on that stuff. Sam Lincoln of US 30, thank you so much, Sam, and have a great time.
Okay, thank you very much.
That was Sam Lincoln of US 30 joining us as a part of the Front Stretch, doing interviews with all the local tracks around the area, trying to get you up to date on what's going on. We'll be right back as we're going to talk with Mike Conkwright of Thunder Hill in just a few minutes. We'll be right back here on the Front Stretch on AM 590 Omaha's ESPN Radio.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The third annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Kosiski Auto Parts is the Metro's premier auto parts store. Located at 50th and I Street, Kosiski Auto Parts will help you find the replacement part you need to get back on the road. Give one of their experienced salespeople a call today at 731-4592. Let Kosiski Auto Parts and Team PRP find your quality used replacement parts. Kosiski Auto Parts offers warranties on all parts that leave their store, so you have peace of mind. Open Monday to Friday, 8 to 5:30 or 24 hours a day at Kosiski.com.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
This is the Front Stretch on AM 590, powered by Kosiski Auto Parts. Quality used parts at an affordable price. Now, back to the Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch, presented by Kosiski Auto Parts. 51st and I Street in Omaha is where you can get all the quality used parts you need to get back on the road and at an affordable price. And now we continue talking with local dirt tracks around the area, and we're on the phone with Thunder Hill Speedway and Mike Conkwright. Mike, how you doing?
Oh, we're doing good. How are you?
Oh, well, enjoying another day in the Omaha area. Thanks so much for taking your time. And let's talk about your 2012 season. How did it end up, and have you guys made any changes in the offseason?
Oh, we had a super season. Our modified points championship came down to the last race, the last night, and it was a 1-point difference.
Wow.
So, probably doesn't get any better than that. Had great racing in all classes. We pride ourselves on our racetrack. It's a big, wide racetrack, and we get 4 or 5 racing every night. So that's.
I was looking at photos of the track on your guys' website, and I was going to ask you that exact question. Do you guys have 4 and 5 wide battles?
Yeah, we do.
It really looks like they could get brave and go 5 wide.
Well, we finish up the year with our October special Thunder on the Hill every year, and it's a 2-day event. And we had Ryan Clark from Iowa come back and spent the weekend with us, and he kept saying he couldn't believe how much 4 and 5 wide racing we had all night long, and said, well, man, it's like that every week. We got a 100-foot wide racetrack. It's a big old 3/8, and them guys really put on a great show. Would you say that it's 2 and 3 grooves, or maybe 2? Oh, it's definitely 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a definite bottom groove, a good middle groove, and what's on the cushion on the top.
What about any races you guys have coming up in 2013? Have you added any new races?
We pretty much stuck. Well, yeah, we got a new SLMRA race that we're looking at doing with Joe and the guys up there and getting some more late model races down here. We used to run quite a few of them in the last years, but the car counts have been kind of low, and we're hoping to get back to having some more late models around.
Is this your first year having the SLMR come back, or were they there in 2013?
No, they've never been there as far as I know, so this would be a first year.
Okay, and it looks like that date is going to be Saturday, July 27th.
Right.
What's your typical race night? Is it on a Friday night or a Saturday night?
We normally run on Saturday nights.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Gates open at
5.
And what's it going to cost me to...
Hot laps at 7 and races right after that.
Okay, and what's it going to cost me to get in the gate?
$15.
For an adult?
For the SLMRA races, yeah. The late model races will be $15. Normal nights, $10.
Any discounts for military and children?
Yes, we do have all military and free.
That's a good thing. We always love to support our military.
Kids 6 and under are free, and 12 to 6 is $5.
Located just west, south, and west of Mayettville, Kansas, and about 15 miles north of Topeka, Kansas. Have you guys done any upgrades to the track in the off season? Any dirt work, or is it pretty much just track's great, no need to change it?
Well, the racetrack's been great. In 2012, the end of the 11th season, we rolled in and put 187 loads of clay on it and reconfigured the racetrack back to its original shape from when it was built. So I think we've got a pretty good solid base underneath of it. It's been a good racetrack. Of course, I think everybody was a little short on water last year, and hopefully Mother Nature helps us out with that this year, and we get a little more rain. But no, I'm really excited about the upcoming season. We've got some terraced parking that we changed up on the north end and added some spots up in there, and did some doing some party decks and selling them right now in the north end of the grandstands as well. So those are a few things that we're changing for this year.
Am I seeing right that the track was built in 94?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so April 15th, 94 is when it officially opened, and then you guys came in and took it over a couple of years ago?
We bought it at the end of 2009.
And then
our first season was in 2010, so this will be our fourth year.
What was the major difference when you guys came in and laid down the new clay and returned it back to its original configuration?
It kind of had a progressive bank to it. It was real steep, and a short bottom. The track was about 60 feet wide, so we widened it back out to what it was and added about 3 feet in the centers of the corners. And it just made great racing. 3 and 4 wide all night long.
RaceThunderHillSpeedway.com is your guys' website, correct?
It is.
When will you guys have your 2013 schedule finalized and posted?
We should have it up after our banquet in the next week.
That's good. Anything else you want to talk about?
Hey, just thanks for calling and being interested in Thunder Hill Speedway. Hope you can all make it in 2013.
Well, we'd love to make it down there. It's a little bit of a trek for us Omaha guys, but this 590 signal goes a long, long way, so I know we'll get down into that area. And I know we got fans down there, and it's my personal goal to follow the SLMR series this year, so I'll come down and say hi to you when I make it down that way.
Yeah, make sure you come by. I'd like to meet with you.
Talking with Mike Conkwright of Thunder Hill Thunder Hill Speedway down in Mayettville, Kansas.
Mayetta,
Kansas. And RaceThunderHillSpeedway.com. What about a Facebook page?
Yeah, we got a Facebook page, Thunder Hill Speedway.
Okay, and you guys keep up to date with everybody on that so they can...
We sure do.
Is there any way they can get information to where if maybe there's a rain out, they can get text messaging, or is it Facebook the best way to go?
If you go to the website, you can sign up for rainout.com,
okay,
and we can shoot a blast text out.
All right, then.
It's free, no charge.
That's good to hear. Well, have a great 2013. Mike, we appreciate you having a conversation with us, and can't wait to meet you.
All right, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later.
That was Mike Conkwright of Thunder Hill Speedway. Again, the website, RaceThunderHillSpeedway.com is where you can go to get more information about that, and looks like they've got some great races lined up this year. They have their schedule fully posted up on their website, and you can catch the SLMR guys down there on Saturday, July 27th. Mike said that tickets to get into the gate, $15. RaceThunderHillSpeedway.com is where you can go to. They got some great pictures, and it looks like it's going to be some great 3, 4, 5 wide racing. Can't wait to see it. Just around the corner, Joe Kosiski and Steve Kosiski, Andrew, Buddy, everyone's going to come back into the studio, and we're going to have a conversation as Joe and Steve are our highlight guest host for the Legends of the Dirt Series. You're not going to want to miss a great conversation just around the corner. This is the Front Stretch, presented by Kosiski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street in Omaha, 731-4592. Those are the digits you need to know to get back on the road at an affordable price. It's the Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
We have all been there before. Broken car part in your hand and some snot-nosed punk behind the counter has no idea what he is talking about, but he guarantees that this part will fix your car. You pay an arm and a leg for the replacement, get it home, and sure enough, it doesn't fit your car. Now, learn from your mistake and give an experienced salesperson at Kosiski Auto Parts a call today at R02-342-3453. Kosiski Auto Parts will get you back on the road with your arms and legs still attached.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The third annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
You're listening to The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio. Brought to you by Kosiski Auto Parts and Team PRP. Premium recycled parts at an affordable price.
Welcome back to The Front Stretch, presented by Kosiski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street in Omaha. 731-4592 is the number you can call, 731-4592. Don't forget to give them a call. Maybe you got into a bit of a fender bender, banged up your radiator, and you guys have got plenty of radiators sitting in the yard there, don't you?
We've got plenty of everything, I think, right now. We're just stocked up and ready to go for this winter.
Y'all have any Ford Ranger parts for Dan's truck?
Well, I hope Dan don't need no Ford Ranger parts, but we do have them.
There you go, Dan.
Last weekend, as a part of the Legends of the Dirt series, we had Scott Bloomquist on. One heck of an interview. So you guys are following up. We decided that, much to Joe and Steve's chagrin, that you guys need to be a part of this because you've got a little bit of history in local dirt track racing. I think between the two of you, you've won about 4,000 or 5,000 races. You own about every title, and I know people like Mark Martin and Dale Sr. and all those guys were calling you guys for advice about getting around corners. So thanks so much for sitting down with us, Joe. I know you've been joining us all year long, helping us out with the Legends of the Dirt. But Steve, it's good to finally meet you.
Well, thank you, and nice meeting you. I've been listening to the show on the Sunday mornings here, and it's really been a pretty neat program. I didn't know all this was happening. I'm kind of Primitiveville, kind of running around too much sometimes.
Again, I apologize if you're feeling dumber for listening to our show, because we tend to bring the IQ down a little bit some days.
Hey. We're pretty good.
Pretty good. Oh, Lord. Joined in studio, Steve Kosiski, Joe Kosiski. Steve drove the 52. Joe drove the 53. Guys, talk a little bit about the start of it. I know the dad, Bob, was the start of all of it. How did you guys really get started into dirt racing, and at what point in time did you kind of take hold and say, yeah, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, the way I look at it means I'm the older and smarter one. He should talk first.
Well, I'll tell you what. I was fortunate. My youngest son, both boys raced cars for a while. My youngest one done his regional or national deal in NASCAR, raced against about 10 different racetracks, and finished third in the nation in his division, and we got a chance to go down to the awards banquet. Well, when he was 11, 12 years old, I put this book away that he drove about to get a go-kart, and it talked about the history of my dad and us, the brothers, and his dream of being a racer. At 11 years old, he was dreaming this. Today, he's 18. But, I see that same dream when I was a kid. I enjoyed it. I remember dreaming. Heck, I hated being in school like him. I hope he doesn't listen to the show, but you dreamed it. You seen it. Our dad set a great image, had a great impression in our lives. To watch the success, watch what he done, and hoping that someday you could have that opportunity to maybe run up there or do something. What success we had? Well, we're just fortunate to be there, and a lot of hard work, and we were taught to work hard. A lot of people thought I was told by some of the guys around another group that I was born with the golden spoon, and after he got to know me and see what we done, he goes, I have a whole different image of what you guys do and work and take care of. And I appreciate his views to change, because we do believe we worked hard for our fortune success we've had.
Joe, at what point in time did you realize this is what you're going to do? Was there a point in the time, or was it just something that ever since you were in diapers, you knew you were going to be a racer?
I kind of think back on what he just said about the book, and I sit back at 5 years old. I remember my dad was driving for a guy named Ernie Matson. You always thought of your dad as the greatest hero that ever lived. I mean, most of us think that way, even if their dad's not a race car driver. But, if anybody ever said, who did you want to follow behind, it wasn't, in my mind, it was never a Dale Earnhardt or a Richard Petty and Cale Yarborough. I always wanted to be like my dad. And it just came to me at 5, 6 years old. I can remember I could know every race car that was at the racetrack. I knew every person that drove every car.
You knew every driver and name by number and heart. It was amazing what he knew.
It's just that you just knew it. It was just that's who it was. You didn't ever have to go to the racetrack, and you knew who it was. It seemed like.
What's it like to know how to not only spell a driver's name correctly but pronounce it also? This is something I struggle with.
You mean the Kosiski name's not easy? If you wrote it down and said it out, it's like the Hawaiian language. You just pronounce everything out, and it's pretty good.
Well, anybody who follows me on Facebook knows that I misspelled Roger Hayden's name. I've misspelled Kelly Bowen's name. I've misspelled Kyle Burke's name. I don't. And announcing at Crawford County last year, I didn't have very much luck with pronouncing even the Scott brothers. Logan and Keegan Scott, I kept calling them the Logan brothers. And it just, at some point in time, I remember Bud turned to me and go, "You got to be kidding me. How can you keep screwing this?" So, I wish I had the history that you guys growing up with this stuff.
Now, when Bud says you got to be kidding me, you know you're in trouble.
I know. That was definitely a low point for me in my announcing career. But there's always next year. I could always reach lower.
You're doing a radio show with me now.
Yeah, I know. A couple of weeks ago, we had Kelly Bowen on the show, and unfortunately, Steve, he had nothing but bad things to say about you.
Yeah, I know. I heard.
He's not a very good fan of you, and I just I don't know where it went wrong, but he would not give us any good stories. Do you have any good stories that you could tell of maybe you and Kelly or you and Joe?
Well, Joe and I, of course, we have a lot of good stories in history because there's the days we've beat each other, there's the days we've battled, and when we've, like I've told people many times, he and I raced together more than anybody against each other. And, when we traveled down the road, we was fortunate. We also got to race different tracks. And we'd call up, "How'd you do tonight?" And he might say, "I won." I might have won at the same track. And, talking with what was happening and traveling, that was kind of the fun things there. When it came to Kelly Bowen, the last couple of years of racing, I had started moving to the NCRA division. WDR was still going somewhat, but it was moving out so far away. You were a big-time traveling series anymore, and it kind of broke everybody, even the series. I think it got too big traveling out there. But I got to the opportunity to race against Kelly the last couple of years, and, we shared a lot of things. It was really awesome because that's what racing and the rivalries are supposed to be about. When you're done hanging the helmet up, doing whatever, you have friendship and bond. The Eckriches, we do business with them. They're great competitors of ours. There's so many different racers, and I can start going on trying to remember some of them, but there's so many different racers that all of them they're in business as well. And it's great to have a good relationship with most of them.
Joe, talk about that rivalry between the two. And was there Steve's in front of me and I got to get past him, or was it something to where, since you're the older brother, it was, my little brother's ahead of me and is beating me?
A lot of people felt that we would always team, that we was a teammates and this and that. And I think we raced each other as hard as we could race. I mean, if it was his turn to win or his turn to be there, you'd shake your head and say, man, I remember a time he won at Davenport, Iowa. I want to say he won like 9 or 11 in a row or something. It was like 3 years straight. Every race we went there, he won the damn race. And he was just unbeatable at that time. But that's how it was. I know there was years when I went to Sunset and it was like my car was glue, and you get to that point of things are just going to be, and at the time you're trying to race, you think, dang it, why could I not beat that guy? What is he doing that I can't do? And then all of a sudden you think, well, I'm glad that it's him and not somebody else, but what do I have to do to get better? And then all of a sudden the trends would just fall the other way. I mean, there was years he would go that he was, and then the years might go that I might be the other way, and then I know he would be sitting behind me going, what can I do to beat that guy?
The one thing I'd like to know is, through the history of Steve and Joe, how many races, and I'm talking race nights, how many races do you think you guys have competed against each other? Thousands?
Not thousands. I'm going to say I probably only raced 1,500 to 1,600 nights total.
Oh, that's.
But even at that, maybe 8,000 nights.
Okay,
and
so
that's still a lot. Over 30 years, that's a lot.
That's a lot. Well, here's the second part to my question. With that being said, I know, coming from a racing family myself, there's got to be times that you guys have laughed at each other and say, only if that night. So my question to each one of you, is there one night in particular where you're like, Joe, Steve, I had you that night. I should have had that night back. What night would that be?
Bud, you had too long of a question there. That's all I can ask you.
See what we said we needed you, buddy?
That was actually a short one.
I don't know, but it's like Joe said about the Davenport deal. when we won the races there, I could do no wrong. We blew a motor in between the qualifying before the feature in a mid-dash race, and we changed the motor. There was no way you should have been able to do this. We hit the wall and broke one night, and we came back in and got a tie rod end fixed with a big crashing came from the back. And when things are in your favor, they're in your favor. And then I couldn't find it for a while. And when you guys interview Brian Burkhofer, you make sure you let him know that I'm still upset he beat my record because he won like 10 or 12 races in a row at Davenport. The guy was unbelievable in what he done. But sometimes you're just on and the wrongs hit and they still become a good thing.
You know, Dan, this is the second time we've been referenced to Brian Burkhofer.
He's an awesome racer, great person if you get to know him.
Well, Kelly Bowen had some words for him.
Kelly's words wasn't quite as good as Steve's, though.
What was it he said? He wouldn't stomp my face out if it was on fire with track cleats.
I think Brian forgives and forgets too. I mean, Kelly's always been aggressive in his racing, and he's had some deals. He may have roughed up some different drivers, and I know those drivers have all had their share. We've all been on both sides of the fence.
You guys obviously are legends, but still, I mean, after all these years, you mean to tell me that there's not one night that kind of jaunts your memory a little bit? It's like, man, I should have had him. He got lucky that night, or man, I wish I really had that night back because I think I could have done it.
When you get in your mid-50s, you're going to not remember as much as you did when you was in your 40s either.
It's not that big a deal
I'm starting
anymore.
to get there now, Joe.
It's probably helping you guys have won so much that it helps to, if there was a bitter pill, it helps to take that bitterness away and say, well, you know what, he may have had that night, but I had this night.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's a better question for you guys.
Uh-oh. You're on the clock.
Yeah. With that being said, Joe, you mentioned that when you're out there racing at Steve, it's competitor versus competitor. Do you think your guys' success largely, individually, you owe a part of your success to the other? Because I would imagine having the brother like a Kurt and Kyle Busch, you drive each other to be the best that you can possibly be. It's one thing if we're talking to Billy Moyer and Brian Burkhofer here, but we're talking to Joe and Steve Kosiski. So when we know, and everybody out there knows that the Kosiskis are legends of the dirt, how much of your success do you owe to one another?
I don't know if I owe any more to him than I would to a Kyle Burke or to a Dave Chase. Everybody you're there racing against, you're racing to be number one. You know, you got Ray Gus. There was guys that Roger Dolan in 1986 when I won the national championship. I had to drive every race to know that I had to beat Roger Dolan. It had nothing to do if Steve was there. And he had the same thing with Tom Hurst, I believe, in 82 when he won it.
So let me ask you.
Am I right?
Does that mean that
85, okay.
Had you not raced each other for all these years growing up in the dirt, do you think you'd be just as good as you were when you retired?
I go to church on Sundays, and I learned I can't change time, so I really don't know. So, I don't have that answer. I know we're fortunate. Yes, maybe racing against each other, we did drive each other a little bit because it drove our crews. Our battle wasn't us because when we got done, we worked all week long. When we were done, we had Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter and all the holidays together.
I'd love to be by the time clock when you guys went to work Monday morning.
Well, it wasn't always early in the morning, but we were like you at the crack of 11, back at work. So, but it's you had the different deals that, yes, we did, like I say, some of the deals that we drove each other, but some of that came from our crews so determined, and our battles weren't us hardly ever. I mean, on the track we're going to have a little bit of things because when you're running as hard as you can, you'll have a few little battles. But anything that ever happened was either from a fan, crew, or something like that was one against the other, and they one like me, or didn't like Joe, or one like Joe and didn't like myself.
Our crews actually probably pushed us harder.
Correct.
Because it was like the rivalry in the backyard, but it really wasn't a rivalry to us two. You know what I mean? We was just lucky enough to be part of the rivalry.
So it was more a crew versus crew.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. And
how many times did one crew help the other crew?
If it was needed, it was helped.
That was one thing I was kind of trying to get to was that nowadays, 20 years ago in NASCAR, two teammates did not help each other. They didn't share any information. But nowadays, what's working for the 24 team, the 48 may come over and help out. So the 52 and the 53 are parked next to each other. Are you guys kind of exchanging information and what you learned on your heat race or your warm-up laps?
You can do a little bit, but problem, Joe and I drive different. People would come over to myself and they'd ask me about the chassis, and they'd walk over to Joe and ask him about the car, and we were lying. Just ask them. They knew we were lying because we told them something different. We drove different. Our cars were different in what we took off and done. And when we worked on the different deals, we would help each other out if the track condition was changed, to say, hey, the track's really dusting off down here, or something like that. I had to set my car up the way I set it up. Joe had to set his car up for that change the way he set it up. But, all those battles came back and forth, and I guess I don't know how I want to say it. We done our challenges, but it was different on the track because each one of us done our stuff different. It wasn't, we weren't the same. I couldn't jump in his car and drive it the way he drove it. He could not jump in my car. We could be competitive, but we had to change because our feels were different.
Well, talk about that, Joe. Your driving style. Who would you compare it to nowadays? Were you kind of a rough and tumble driver, or were you a finesse driver? Were you somebody who would give somebody their space, but after a certain point in time, you'd move them out of the way? Because we've talked about this. I never did get to see
really
your
can't
race.
answer that question because I never seen myself race. So, and my idea was I'd done the best I could do all the time. You know what I'm saying? As to say what kind of a driver I was, that would have to be asked by other drivers.
Yeah. Steve, hands down, favorite win. What is your favorite win? If there is one that you puff your chest out the most about.
I'll tell you what my most memorable race was. I was 1979 in Topeka, Kansas, Labor Day weekend, and I'm out there for my first late model race because we had the car all together. I'd been racing Sportsman the last 2 years. I went down there for my first late model race. And, I'm out there thinking I'm doing pretty good. I qualified 6th or 12th, 10th, 12th. I made the race. That was a good deal.
Yeah.
I'm out there running. I think I'm running about 6th or 8th. And going good, kind of out there by yourself because it was a 40, 50 lap race. And it was just like what was happening here, the longest race I'd been in at that time, everything else. And they give me the move over flag. And I said, man, I know Joe and Dad were up there. And I'm going, I wonder where those two guys are at. And about the next lap, I went to the middle of the back straightaway, and they went on both sides of me down the back straightaway. And I said, it doesn't always have to be a win, the race you remember, but when the things are, and that one set in my mind. Of course, we've had some fortunate great wins, to go for the Yankee and just winning, the Alphabet Soup race, my last year of racing.
Yeah.
Winning at Belleville, Kansas, the last year I raced. I won there 25 years before, and I won my last race I've won was at Belleville. And there's just there's memories, great things, great fun, but it's another day and we go on.
Joe, you got one?
I don't know if I've got just an extra race that I can really sit down and say that was my greatest race. I remember beating Roger Dolan in '86. Down at Lakeside Speedway for winning the national championship. It was one of them last lap, you have to win. Whoever won between us was going to win the NASCAR national championship that year. And I made the pass on Roger Dolan, and he had a pretty good lead at one time, and it just so happened that was it. But, I'm like Steve, so many races you won, you kind of go back and you're kind of sitting here and thinking, which one was the best? Boy, they was all great, or else I wouldn't have wanted to win them, But now as I look at it, that's probably one of the moments that I will never forget in my life is making that last lap pass there on Roger Dolan.
Having your dad, Bob Kosiski, who's got a couple of W's in the column also, how often did you guys go to the well and say, Dad, my car's just not working right. What am I doing wrong? And he would be able to sit there and tell you. Is it the same kind of thing to where he drove different than you two, so he really couldn't help?
We didn't have to go to the well.
He was coming to us.
He was coming to us. If we wasn't fast enough or there was something wrong, he was coming to us.
Is he going to say a different story in a couple of weeks when we talk to him?
He might be, but his head would be in that window so fast telling you what you done wrong that you didn't have to worry about going to him and saying, what can I do better?
You got a question, Andrew?
No.
I know it's pretty weird.
But it's all true. I know all this.
Well, let me ask you then, Andrew. These two won't give me any dirt. You got any? Well, I guess I can't really ask you for any dirt because the man pays your tuition. Half. Okay. Well, do you have anything that? Do you have a favorite story of those two racing with each other? That probably one of your favorite races to watch them battle it out, or?
Park Jeff every year when I was a little kid, we'd always go up there and watch. That was always a good race to know who was going to win because you never knew between the two. That was probably my favorite one. Was always Park Jefferson because they both were real fast and you never knew who was going to win. And me and my cousin would always sit up there and bet with each other. And it was like every other week going that WDRL race as well. My dad was fast this week. When my dad was fast this week, we had our own little bets going on up in the grandstands every single week. It never really mattered to us too much because we weren't racing, but it was always cool to watch them there.
I can tell you a good race. I could tell you a couple of the races. It was a lot of fun. But I had one race at Sunset Speedway when I was running, and I don't remember if it was 92 or 99, somewhere in there. And Jeff Eike, I went clear to Farley, Iowa to race because we was racing for the regional battle at that time, and I drove clear to Farley, not Farley, but Ellison, Iowa, and Jeff showed up and he says, I'm sitting here looking at these stats, and he says, if I don't race tonight, I'm better off not racing, and I drove all the way up there to not be able to race against him because it worked out that don't race there. He thought he was going to be better off coming the next day and coming to Omaha and racing against me for that championship. And I'm out here, and Bill Martin's leading, and Bill will be on the show here in a couple of weeks. And Bill Martin's out in the lead, and I'm running second, and I don't think I got about 8 laps, and I've got to catch Bill and beat him. And lo and behold, we get a yellow flag, and guess who it is? Jeff Ike spun out down in turn 3 and 4, gets the yellow flag to put me on Bill Martin's bumper, so now I've got a chance to win the regional championships. I mean, you can sit back and, if you really sit and think about it, you can think of a lot of different races that had different meanings to them. And
we're going to take a quick break and continue our Legends of the Dirt series when we get back. This is The Front Stretch, presented by Kosiski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Kosiski Auto Parts is the Metro's premier auto parts store. Located at 50th and I Street, Kosiski Auto Parts will help you find the replacement part you need to get back on the road. Give one of their experienced salespeople a call today at 731-4592. Let Kosiski Auto Parts and Team PRP find your quality used replacement parts. Kosiski Auto Parts offers warranties on all parts that leave their store, so you have peace of mind. Open Monday to Friday, 8 to 5:30, or 24 hours a day at Kosiski.com.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The third annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
This is The Front Stretch on AM 590, powered by Kosiski Auto Parts. Quality used parts at an affordable price. Now, back to The Front Stretch.
Welcome back to The Front Stretch, presented by Kosiski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street. Get down to Kosiski Auto Parts. If you need to get yourself a battery replaced, head over there, $40. Get yourself a full lifetime warranty, and you'll be back on the road. Did you need a new battery, bud? I know your Dodge was having trouble one night.
You had to bring that up.
I had to jumpstart you there with my truck.
Yeah.
With my little Ranger got you going again.
No, I don't need a battery. I'm good.
Well, we're going to continue our conversation with the Kosiski boys, Joe Kosiski and Steve Kosiski, as a part of the Legends of the Dirt series. We thank you guys for sitting down and continuing our conversation.
I want to talk about Bud once. So I heard the guys kind of harass him about being like Kurt and Kyle Busch. I just want to say, Bud, that's kind of a compliment. They're heck of a good race car drivers, both of them.
That wasn't the part I was
just
referring
like
to.
Tony Stewart, though. Tony just knows how to say it in the right way. Kurt and Kyle lose it there. That's where they lose out.
Yeah.
Did you guys have any kind of problems back then? Nowadays, a driver really has to worry about his image, because when he's got a sponsor on the side of his car, he's got to worry about if he screws up at a track and he makes himself look like an ass, is he going to worry about that losing that sponsor? Was that the same issue you guys had back then, or was it kind of a little bit more of the good old boy kind of atmosphere?
Yeah, I've done all those things.
Hey, it helped me this year.
You have to watch your image. You have to present it, and sometimes you lose it. Sometimes you have things happen on the track, and we've had all those things, different deals happen, but we try to keep it represented most of the time pretty well for what goes on, because we want the sport, to be good. We want it to be represented well if we can, and things have happened on the track too. So
I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that subject. Have you actually, Andrew, I know you may not be the biggest fan of him, but the one name that comes to mind right away, the young phenom Tyler Reddick. Do you think that potential sponsors are following the social media of these drivers, the Tyler Reddicks and the young guys coming up through the sport? Do you think that is a big, somebody goes on there and they're getting drunk all the night and they're doing this and they're doing that, not representing, when you own XYZ company and you're sponsoring a driver,
You see what I'm saying? Are they really trying to follow their drivers?
I don't know if the sponsors are trying to follow them. I don't know if they're out wanting to spend their money that bad that they're trying to follow somebody. I believe maybe if Tyler Reddick has contacted them, they might start following to see how he's progressing along and things like that. But I don't think they're just out looking to find somebody that they could possibly go.
Let's say Andrew's not obviously related to you, so he's just another driver.
Let's pick a different driver because Andrew is related. That's
all right,
family.
So Kelly Bowen, you're going to sponsor Kelly Bowen. Does Kosiski Auto Parts follow Kelly on Facebook? We're sponsoring him this year. We want to see what kind of image he's portraying out there to the public. Steve, you got the world's biggest grin on your face.
But I just finally got me one of these phones. What is Facebook? Sorry, I'm primitive. I've had the flip phone forever, so this phone's 2 weeks old.
Well, shoot, Joe just finally learned how to text this year.
What do you mean?
And tweet.
What do you mean just learned how to text this year?
Lando Lexus got to keep in touch with him somehow.
Yeah.
I think what Bud's trying to ask is 2 years ago down in Texas when Kyle Busch had that incident and Mars M&M's came out and made the statement, that is not the kind of person we want representing us, and Kyle has to make some changes. You guys, as owners of Kosiski Auto Parts, if you were to sponsor a driver and they were to have some sort of an incident like that, do you think you would look at the record of him being a winner, him or her being a big winner, or would you look at the overall progress of the driver and say, or the attitude of the driver and say, you know what, he may be a good driver, but I don't want my auto parts store associated with someone that acts like that?
I think you're going to do it a couple times. Everybody's going to have a mistake or two. That's going to happen. The adrenaline of racing, the aggression you have, you're going to have a couple of them. But after that, then like M&M's have to reevaluate it. It wasn't Kurt's or Kyle's first time.
No.
By no means.
And also you got to remember Kurt was on his second or third time before they decided to go boom with him.
With Shell Pennzoil.
Yeah. We don't know what all happens behind the scene too, how the communication world is, because it's you're dealing with a lot of how do you want to say, high testosterone
testosterone,
just like the football players, everything else. After a while, you get rid of them because they're more work than the total gain they might put as a team or an effort. And, the driver is a leader of the team in many areas.
And that's interesting you bring it up because at the time we recorded this show, you made the association to football. The head coach for the Lions is in a little bit of hot water right now. The owner might fire him not based on performance, but based on the image of the team. And he specifically released a statement saying that this is not the kind of team we want to have. And we know there's been issues with Ndamukong Suh with getting into skirmishes and off the field issues. And so you kind of that's the kind of stuff we're talking about and kind of expressing to the newer drivers. You guys got to kind of, you can be yourselves, but to a certain point. Is that what you guys are saying?
Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say you can go back to the Detroit Lions, but you can also look at Sean Payton, who got set out for a year and just got a 5-year extension. So, it depends on the owner and how they believe that they want that their team or, and I don't care if it's a race team or a football team to get to that point. They want the best, and sometimes when they've touched it, they want to know how to get it back there again.
We had a conversation off the air, and to let people behind the curtain a little bit, we sat down and recorded a bunch of these interviews one night, and Roger Hayden of Vigo Raceway was one of them. And off the mic conversation we had with Roger was, he's plain and simple asked, what do we do? Because you don't want to put a dark light on the sport, but it is kind of a dying sport. There's less people interested in being drivers versus less butts in seats. Is there any advice you guys can think of? I know we kind of brainstormed a little bit. Is there anything you guys can think of that when you guys were driving, it seemed like there was plenty, well, maybe not plenty. Was there plenty of drivers, fans, and spectators?
Yeah, I'd love to. If we could back up and get rid of the internet, get all the people to come to the racetrack instead of supporting it, get rid of the negativity. Negativity is everywhere in life, though, of course. But if we could get rid of some of that, get rid of the negativity on some of the different race lines, because everyone is in charge of something and don't realize the destruction they've done.
There's one thing I would like to add to that.
I'm going to follow up real quick. That's interesting you bring that up, that they get off the internet.
So when you look at the negativity of that, now that's some of the areas. Our cars have changed. Go find me a rear-wheel drive car today. Some of the stuff we used to go out and build and do, you don't get the on-hands type of people anymore in racing. Everything is front-wheel drive. And then, of course, you talk about the front-wheel drive cars or four-cylinders. Many people downgrade them. I think it's our future, guys. That's where we're at. Guys are having a blast out there doing it. And that is the people we love, because when you're done racing, I was done in my class, and you get out, okay, you've done your job, you have your little frustrations. Go over to the 4-cylinder class. There's more smiles over there than there are at a Nebraska football game many times. You know, the guys are having a great time, and it's what racing's supposed to be. And many people criticize because, they're just 4-cylinders. Well, why aren't those people criticizing doing something else about racing instead of sitting there criticizing?
That'd be an interesting change of pace. And you brought up one thing. Do you guys YouTube videos of your guys' races at I-80?
YouTube?
Yeah, it's
Joe Kosiski.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the YouTube process.
Do you put the replays back on your website?
No, sir.
Okay, that's one thing that
We've got some that's been done in the cars.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it. I mean, they used to do it a couple of years ago. Donnie Jones was one of the managers at the track, and they used to do a few of the. I guess you would call it YouTubes. It was on our webpage. You know, when they would show the cars, they'd put a camera in it, things like that. I don't know if it ever excited anybody to say, I'm going to build a race car, come to the racetrack. You know, and for me to kind of answer the same way as Steve does, you know, it's back to touching everybody and saying, why don't you come to the racetrack? You said a little while ago, back in that same conversation, for $10, it's the cheapest thing we get today for a spectator thing to go have fun. And how do you get the person to make somebody else say, come on out with me? It's $10. Yeah. If every person that was there brought one more person each night, it would go from 800 people to 1,600 people in one night. Now, if them people all turned, by 2 weeks, you got 3,200 people.
Yeah.
You know, and they all say that, well, we can do this through the internet. We can do it. We got to do it by saying, come on and let's go to the races one night. It's $10.
You know, I don't come from a racing family. We had this conversation off the air about how I grew up in a small town, southwest Iowa. I never knew there was tracks just outside of Omaha, in between Omaha and Lincoln. I never knew there was all these tracks around here. Even when I moved up here for college and I've lived in Council Bluffs for 10 years, I still had no idea. Not until I met Buddy did I actually get exposed to this sport. And I have spent the last year doing what he did to me, which was exposing people to the sport and showing, listen, you got to come out to these racetracks and you got to have some fun with it. And I have exposed several of my friends and even my family members to say, you know what, this is actually kind of fun. I remember the night I brought my parents and my family out to Crawford County.
You wouldn't let me meet them.
No, and I don't think any of the listeners have an issue with that. Everyone understands why I would not let them meet you. But they've talked to me several times about that, about the night that was and the racetrack, and my dad was talking about, that was so much fun. And if you think you're going to get the experience on YouTube, you are sorely mistaken.
You know what? The one thing I'm going to say, and I'm saying this as a driver. You know, Steve, Joe, Roger, Hayden, I don't care what track promoter, what part of the country you're from, their brother told me a long time ago, and there is a lot of truth. Joe, Steve, and the family, they're going to give us a racetrack, but is it their job to put people in the seats? Absolutely not. In my opinion, no. We go to I-80 because we want to provide a show for our fans. I see the split being 60-40. 60%, the track, just give us a track to race at. But I think the drivers themselves, the drivers are just as equally as responsible for putting people in the stands. The one driver I got to throw out here in the sport mods, Kevin Wagner. Look what you guys did this year, Joe, and he got a free suit. But how many people did he bring to the stands that night? That was impressive.
If I recall right, it was over 800 people. His name come back on tickets. One driver.
One guy. So you get 100 drivers out at I-80 Speedway, and they're all bringing 800. You have 8,000 people. Now, Joe and the Kosiski family, they gave us a track to work at, but come on, drivers. Get off your high horse. Get out of the keyboards. Go meet the drivers, just like what I did with you, Dan.
Yeah.
You went to the dirt track because you met a driver. You didn't meet the promoter. You met the driver. The drivers are just as equal. With that being said, I'm going to get off my high horse.
No, I completely agree with you. I think it's up to the drivers, and you guys chime in to let me know if you agree with me or not, that what Bud said, it's up to the drivers to put on a show.
I think the drivers are always trying to put on a show. That's not a question there. It's the way the people handle some of the other stuff. When you talk about Kevin Wagner, I know Kevin and Daryl both, and good people. And they really used the technology properly, Facebook or whatever, Twitter. I don't know how they done all their connections, but they marketed and done the things they needed to do.
But do people go to I-80 to see you and Joe, or do they go to the I-80 to see Dylan Smith, Johnny Sadoff, Buddy Ray, the Darryl Wagners? Do they go to watch the racers, or do they go out there solely just to say hi?
Both, I think, anymore. Some of the older ones are there to say hi. Some of the newer ones are there to watch the races and see what entertainment's going to happen. You know, I look at this Twitter deal and the Facebook. I know people are down there putting on as soon as the race is over. This is what's happening during the race. And if that's what they're going to do, it's great to put it on and use it, but wait till about that night or something like that if you got to put it on for your sponsors or something else. Because if you're going to keep them away, you're informing them, but you inform that they don't have to go to the races.
I think Twitter and Facebook could definitely be the turning point to get the sport to being back up to the popularity that it needs to be. And I think Brad Keselowski up in NASCAR showed it, that when you tweet like that, and I think he gained like some 250,000 followers when he was sitting on the backstretch at Daytona, and when he's tweeting that kind of stuff, it exposes the sport. And that's what we were talking about, is the exposure rate of the sport is dropping because less and less people are bringing friends and exposing their people.
I think you're a little wrong there, because the exposure rate, they've got TV, and ever since they've got TV, kind of the same thing Steve's talking about. Why do I want to go sit in the heat, not be in the air conditioning, and go to a race because I can watch it on TV? To me, that's what's happened to the NASCAR part of it. It hasn't gotten any more boring. It used to be, when they talked about it, it used to be that you'd hear Cale Yarborough 5 laps in the lead in a NASCAR race, but the people were still dying to go fill those grandstands up. Yeah. Today, they're within a straightaway, and they might have a green-white checkered with double-breast starting field, and the people are going, I don't want to go there. Well, why? Because I can sit at home and watch it on TV. Well, that's the same thing I think Steve's trying to bring up by the tweets and the letting everybody know what's happening right at the moment. There's so many people that's sitting at home that, won't go out and spend $10, and they look for every excuse. Well, it's your fault. You had a little dust tonight. Guess what? It used to be dusty at every racetrack you go to. Yeah. It's just what they don't want to do no more.
See, I think NASCAR and racing in general is the only sport that is TV proof that I can sit down and watch a football game, and the breakdown I get at a football game, the replays, the close-ups, the analysis is so much better than if I paid to go and sit in the stands. But when I'm at a NASCAR event or I'm at your guys' track, I get everything plus more than when I was watching it on TV. We sat there and listened to the MRN broadcast, and we'd switch over and listen to a driver's radio, and we'd hear what the crew chief was talking about with the car. That's something you don't get while you're sitting at home on the couch. And the feel of those cars. So you get it at I-80 when they come off of Turn 4, and I cannot wait till those 410s come off the Turn 4 at I-80, and to feel that, and to feel all the action and the atmosphere. You cannot get that sitting at home on your couch watching it on TV. I think racing is the only sport that is proof of that happening. Did I just stun the crowd?
I think you did.
Talking as long as Bud, so I was just sitting back. We didn't know.
I was actually kind of
ready
impressed.
to go. Yeah,
Bud's
over here high-fiving already. So.
Well, guys, we kind of hijacked your Legends of the Dirt series, and we got to move on. We got to get to the next interview, but we appreciate you guys coming in. And Steve, if you could give one piece of advice to an upcoming driver, someone who is wanting to get into the sport, what would that piece of advice be?
Boy, oh boy! Expect to work hard if you want to succeed. I learned several different sayings through the years, and one is effort equals success. And it's in all of life. It matters what you put forth. This is the success you'll get. Yeah, there's different talent out there, but if you put forth more effort, you can beat a lot of that talent.
Joe, you got a little piece of advice you could give drivers?
You got to wake up every morning with a positive attitude. And if you don't wake up with a positive attitude and you wake up with that, well, I might be able to today, guess what? You might be able to today. I mean, I don't care if that's going from working on your race car all the way up to the day you race it. Yeah. Wake up with a positive attitude, and where you're going is where you're going.
Great words of advice from two legends of the local dirt series. Guys, thanks so much for sitting down with us. Steve, it was great meeting with you. And Joe, as always, it's great to sit down and talk with you for a little bit and pick your brain. This has been The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The third annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
We have all been there before. Broken car part in your hand and some snot-nosed punk behind the counter has no idea what he is talking about, but he guarantees that this part will fix your car. You pay an arm and a leg for the replacement, get it home, and sure enough, it doesn't fit your car. Now, learn from your mistake and give an experienced salesperson at Kosiski Auto Parts a call today at R02-342-3453. Kosiski Auto Parts will get you back on the road with your arms and legs still attached.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.